Hello, everybody, and welcome to Morning Call for Wednesday. Is it Wednesday, the 30th of January? Yes, it is Wednesday. Sometimes I don't know what day of the week it is, and my camera needs to be straightened again. Hello, good morning. Hope you're doing great. I'm Fab from Hamburg. I'm a bit under the weather today. I don't know. I might go right back out to bed after this. I still need to preserve my strength for the weekend for STEM, but I hope you're doing better, and I'll be giving my best to get you through the tech news of the day. There's actually some news. It's starting to heat up the whole news ecosystem. It's been really slow for a while. I mean, January is usually slow, but usually only the beginning. Now it's starting to roll in. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Jay Poser, Gralva. Hello everywhere, wherever you are. Hope you're doing great. So let's get into this stuff. Microsoft still having problems in their cloud. Now they have outages with Microsoft 365, which is basically Office 365, Windows 10, and everything else they do roll together into a service. And they have different problems. They're saying authentication problems. They changed the network provider. There were people couldn't use services, couldn't click on links. I don't know. I still feel the timing is weird with that security vulnerability. You know, the access domain controller privilege thing where you can get admin rights. It kind of feels to me that this is connected. Microsoft said they will be providing an incident report in a few weeks. So I guess we'll be reading that and see what has actually happened. Also, Microsoft is saying that they will finally kill Internet Explorer 10 in 2020. It's not only Windows 7, but also Internet Explorer 10 will go away. Not much more to say about this, I guess. It's about time, I think. It's about time that got shut off. There is, I think it'll still run on Windows Server 2012 and Windows 8 embedded, which I guess have longer maintenance and service lifespans. But I mean, oh god, if you're running that, you have completely different problems, other things that you have to protect against. Apple is in the news currently because they're not making that much money as they always had. For the first time in a December quarter, their revenue is down. It's only down 5%. And, you know, this is capitalism nonsense because this is news because they're not growing. Their revenue is $84.3 billion. You know, you'd think that was enough. Net income, 20 billion, which is down slightly from 20.07 in Q1 of 2018. You'd think it's be good enough, but they're in hot water because they're not selling enough iPhones, which, you know, you could kind of see coming. It's a luxury good. Not everybody. At some point, there's enough around. The nice thing about iPhones is they don't break as fast as Android phones. I kind of like that, but that means you're not buying as much. Yeah, it's it's weird. This is weird. Yeah, Joe is saying he's got that down the back of his sofa. You might want to help out Apple a bit there. Their investors are not happy, I guess, which is just weird. I mean, they're making so much money. Come on. Speaking of money, EA has relented. They were in trouble with the Belgian authorities over loot boxes in FIFA. And so the thing is, in FIFA Ultimate Team is basically it's like a trading card game, right? You open packs of players, and then you can use these players or abilities for a certain time, and you can buy these packs with in-game currency, but you can also buy them with real money. And because you don't know what you open, and you're paying with real money, the Belgian authorities have said that this is illegal gambling. I have never really understood that. I think I'm not a lawyer, but I think that in Germany the accepted standard for gambling is that you win money, or you have to win something that is equivalent to money. I guess you could like, there are like 3 third-party sites where you could exchange stuff, but I'm not quite sure how that works in FIFA. I don't think this conforms to a German understanding of what gambling is. Although, the EA has now relented, and what they're doing is, if you're actually playing FIFA, or more likely your kids are probably playing it, this is actually this is you'd think this is bad, because it looks like they're just pulling the real game currency out of the game, and you can still buy. They're saying you can still get those players and whatever with the points you earn in game. But I mean, if you ever played any of these games, you will know that earning them in game is notoriously slow, because they want you to buy stuff with money. Okay, they're spending a lot of time on this game, and that's how they make money. I don't think that is in itself a bad thing. I mean, you could object to the business model, but I think if that is their only change, if they're not changing the economy of the game, then Ultimate Team players in Belgium will be royally screwed, because they will be really far behind the curve, because they will have to earn all their stuff in game, which is really slow. They'll have to grind, and they won't be able to just buy stuff. I see this kind of skeptical. I'm not, we have gambling laws in Germany, pretty strict ones. I'm not against regulating gambling. I think that is generally a good idea. I think you can overdo it though. I think some of this isn't gambling. I mean, there is an argument to be made that these kinds of economies in these kinds of games are not healthy, especially for young children. But I spent my pocket money back in the day on like Magic cards and Warhammer, and if these days kids want to spend them on like digital stuff in games, I don't see that in itself being bad. It's a problem if they get suckered into it, if the economy is bad, if they spend too much money in it, that's a problem. But I think generally, if I was a parent, I'd be glad they're spending it on digital stuff, because I wouldn't have my whole house full of fucking Warhammer. Like, if I wouldn't mind if I had kids, but I think there are parents who might if the whole house is full of crap. So it's not all negative, and I'm kind of, if they overdo it at some point, something like a trading card game like Magic would be gambling, because I mean you're spending money, and then you're opening packs, and you get like random stuff, and you can sell those cards. So, but I don't think that. I don't personally think it's gambling. It's you also have to be careful with these things, because the state has an ulterior motive in these, because in most of our states gambling is heavily regulated, especially in Germany, for example. All the casinos and everything belong to the government, like they belong to the not the federal state, but like the state level. they belong to the state basically, and they make money off that. So, I mean, yes, they're regulating gambling, which is probably good for people so that they don't fall into like unhealthy things, and the state can protect them. But on the other hand, they're also doing this because they're making a lot of money of it, which is why I'm also a bit wary of this. Speaking of the German state, the German email provider called Posteo, who prides themselves to be a privacy conscious. Hello, Mike, with the fab emoji. Oh God, Mike's not. Why aren't you VIP? Didn't I make you a VIP? Anyway, I will later. The Posteo is like a German. It's like a privacy. Their selling point is all about privacy, and they save as little data if you have an email account there, as little as possible. And they were being fined for not giving out IP addresses in, I guess, it must have been like a criminal investigation or something. They were saying we don't have these email addresses, and I think they showed the police that they're not saving them because they're doing some kind of NAT kind of thing where they obfuscate email addresses. They try not to save them, and they're not the only provider like this. This mailbox.org, which I actually kind of like. I'm looking into. It's a very nice provider, but they were fined, and they went to the Constitutional Court, which is like if you're from America, it's like our Supreme Court. They said it's against the German Constitution to force us to give out these IP addresses. Now, the court did not agree. They did lose that case. The court said, well, your business model is privacy-enhanced email. That is all fine, but we have laws here. And if the laws say you need to give the police email, like IP addresses for your email accounts, then you'll have to do it. The court basically was saying it would be illegal if we made you, like if we, I think if I understand this decision correctly, then they said if we forced you to build like some spying software into your system, that would be against the Constitution. But you had these IP addresses, and you're going through technical means to basically get rid of these IP addresses. You're forgetting them on purpose, and that is just not right because you had them at one point, so you could have given them to us. And why I understand what Posteo is doing there. I think it's really they're doing a good service for their users. I think we need more privacy-focused services like this. Not only email. I mean, you don't have to use them. Most people won't use them. But for people who want to use them, they're a good service. But I can also understand the court because there are laws and they are right. I mean, they had these email. The court basically said for technical reasons you had these email addresses because you need to send packages around, and the fact that you're just deleting them, that's a no-go. I completely understand the court there. But the problem here is also like a psychological or like an inherent one. The problem now is that of course you have these email addresses. I mean, this is the dilemma. I mean, that it's technically they're built in. So the boundaries of providing privacy within the law are now kind of in a technical sphere. Most of these laws were written before the internet existed, and there's just some data you didn't have. Now on the internet, on a web service, everything has an IP address. So maybe we need to change that. Maybe it needs to be possible for people not to save these email addresses or these IP addresses, to delete these IP addresses, to delete data like this. Maybe we need a way to legally delete this data. And the police that always says, well, then we can't work anymore. That is not true because they have other means of tracking people down, which I will actually talk about at the end of the show. There's a nice story that shows how this can work. Anyway, a fascinating story from OpenStreetMap, this community mapping service you might have heard of. It's like like Google Maps. or like Apple Maps, but it's people mapping this local people. So the maps are, I mean, the user interface is not up to what other services are. There are pay services who provide a better user interface, but usually the data is very correct. It's very good because it's local people with their devices mapping stuff, and with these others, they just usually trace satellite images, and they're often out of date. Anyway, it's a community project. They have a board, and it's community governed, and they have figured out that a company tried to manipulate the elections for this board on the day where like there was like a last sign up day where you could sign up and then vote on things. They had like 100 people sign up. Actually, they were too late, which is why this didn't work. But this is like a company. It's called Global Logic. They're like an outsourcing provider. From what I understand, what they do is lots of these, Apple Maps, Google Maps, lots of these mapping services. Lots of the mapping and the program is actually done by people in India, and Global Logic is like they're doing this outsourcing stuff. And so they had lots of their employees sign up, and the OpenStreetMap community investigated this and said, we don't think they signed up voluntarily and on their own. I think this was a concerted effort. Luckily, they were too late, so it's not a problem anyway. But this looks really bad. I mean, interestingly, there's if you wanna read it, they put out like a PDF with a complete report, and it's just very interesting of a company manipulating something like this, and they were, I think they were very clumsy. It was so easily to figure out. Global Logic also works for so the OpenStreetMap community also already had problems with OpenLogic before. There were some kind of fights going on because they work, for Apple, for Google, but also for a startup called Grab, which I guess is the Uber in like Southeast Asia. And there was a fight about so Grab is they need maps, they need road maps, like a service like Uber, that app needs mapping, and they were employees of Grab, or more correctly, I think we know of this Global Logic company, were actually changing maps in Thailand, that local people on the ground had made maps, and this company was changing them. The problem was they were changing them based on satellite data. Probably like outsourced guys in India were like changing these maps. Problem is the satellite images were outdated. I mean, in stuff like, fast-growing countries, if you have 5-year-old satellite data, there'll be new roads. Everything will have changed, and they were actually changing the maps for the worse. So. Interesting story. I really like OpenStreetMap. It's a great project. Very good mapping data. Like I can only recommend, if you haven't looked at it, look at the OpenStreetMap maps for your local neighborhood. Sometimes there's like over here in Hamburg, it's like everything's maps, like every single rubbish bin. You can find things here you didn't know existed on those maps, because people with local knowledge. If you've grown up where you live, I've moved so much. I always live in other places, and so I kind of it's kind of handy to figure that out. Anyway, before we end the show, just one. It's not so much news. It's just a story I saw that I can't go into detail on this show, but I would recommend you check out. You might remember Silk Road, which was an underground forum website. I'm very interested in IT security and in investigative techniques. And they, for a few years ago, they took down Silk Road, who was run by a guy called Ross Ulbricht, aka the Dread Pirate Roberts, and they tracked him for quite a while, and then arrested him, and now he's in jail for life. I think at some point they were talking about he had hired hitman and wanted to kill 6 people, although I don't think that was ever substantiated. But it's a great story. Like the Hells Angels were reputedly involved in this, and it's all great. But the Register now has a story a few years after. A story is called "I Helped Catch Silk Road Boss Ross Ulbricht, Undercover Agent Tells All," of the main guy who tracked him down for the FBI, or I think the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, special agent, worked with the FBI, tracked this guy down. And he was at a security conference, I think, in France, and he was just basically telling the story of how he tracked this guy down. The Register has a very long 2-page article on this, which is well worth reading. Very interesting details. Some of this already knew. Basically, they didn't track the guy down so much through technical means. This is the thing I mean, like all these IP addresses or whatever. Like you catch these guys by old-fashioned investigative techniques. They tracked parcels. They found people who had accounts on the forums. Then they put pressure on them, got them to snitch, got their accounts, got in there, got people's trust, and then just got closer and closer to the guy running it, then surveilled him. They were actually, when they arrested him, they were actually in the same cafe as him. He then went to a public library. They watched him. They watched on the Silk Road admin panel that the moment he opened his laptop there, he signed in, and, they could verify it was him. And then they basically had people in the library create a commotion, so he would turn around, and another agent just ran towards him, grabbed his laptop, and then plugged him in. And there's lots of little details in the story. The agent says, agent grabbed the power cord and plugged the laptop into the power cord because you can't have it go off in case it's full disk encryption. And they're like, how did we know what power cord we got into his Amazon account? So you knew what laptop he was using, and we brought the right power cord. There's lots of stuff. He says this agent is talking about how the FBI wanted to he had a flat on the first floor, and they were afraid if we go in, he's gonna destroy his laptop. And they wanted to actually blow out the back wall of the apartment, and then ninja roll in rappel down from lines from a helicopter. And this agent's like, you're fucking insane. This is never gonna work. You're gonna crash the helicopter. Let's do it my way. It's a great story. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, and it's just a great read. I think politicians should read more of this stuff because this is not very technically written, and it just explains how these kinds of investigations work, and they surprisingly not very different than normal criminal investigations the police does. There's IP addresses and stuff involved, but mostly they just tracked him down with legwork. And yeah, really cool story. Anyway, I'm gonna call it quits for now. I'm still, as I said, a bit under the weather. I hope you have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow with more tech news.
Love the Star Trek layout.
And yes, Mike, the LCAS layout is great, isn't it? Oh, and thanks for the cheer. Wow, it's a rainbow, 2020 rainbow flags. And as you can see, your username is so long that it just broke my LCAS layout, so I'm going to have to tweak that a little bit. That's going to drive me insane. Yeah, I'm still tweaking it a bit. Anyway, Esky says you should read American Kingpin. Okay, is that a book? I haven't heard about that. I'm gonna look that up right away, and I hope you all have a nice day, and see you tomorrow with more tech news. Goodbye.